I never thought a single piece of fabric could start a war. But that's exactly what happened on Maplewood Drive. It started quietly, like these things always do. Mary Thompson had lived in that house for 32 years. Same porch swing. Same white fence her husband built by hand. Same flagpole standing tall in the front yard, a symbol that meant more than decoration. It was history. It was sacrifice. Her husband, Daniel Thompson, had served 2 tours overseas. He didn't come back the same man. And eventually, he didn't come back at all. The flag was never just a flag, it was him every morning. Mary would step outside just after sunrise. Coffee in one hand, the other gently adjusting the rope on the pole. Raise the flag, pause, breathe. It was her ritual, her way of keeping him close. And for decades, no one said a word, until the letter arrived. Plain white envelope. HOA logo in the corner. Official tone. Cold language. Violation notice. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Maybe they meant someone else. Maybe it was about the fence or the mailbox. But then she read it again. Unauthorized flagpole installation. Daily fines will be issued until removal. Mary just stood there confused, because the flagpole had been there longer than half the houses in that neighborhood. Longer than the HOA itself. She walked outside, staring at it like she was seeing it for the first time. The pole hadn't changed. The flag hadn't changed. But suddenly, everything else had. She called the number on the letter. No answer. She left a message. Nothing. 2 days later, another letter arrived. This one wasn't a warning, it was a bill, $150, and at the bottom, in bold, daily fines will continue to accumulate. That's when the confusion turned into something else, something heavier. Mary wasn't the type to fight. She wasn't loud. She didn't argue. She had lived quietly, respected every rule, paid every due. But this didn't feel like a rule, it felt personal, so she did what anyone in her position would do. She went to the HOA office. The building sat just at the entrance of the neighborhood, clean, polished, artificially welcoming. Inside, everything smelled like fresh paint and control. Behind the desk sat a woman named Karen Holt. Perfect posture, perfect smile, the kind that never reaches the eyes. Mary explained the situation calmly. There must be a mistake, she said. That flagpole has been there for decades. Karen didn't even check a file. Regulations were updated last year, she replied. All external structures must comply with current aesthetic standards. Mary blinked. Aesthetic standards. Yes, Karen nodded. The flagpole exceeds height restrictions and was never formally approved under the current charter. Mary tried to process that. My husband installed that pole after he came back from deployment, she said softly. Karen's expression didn't change. I understand, she said. But rules are rules. That was the moment everything shifted. Because it wasn't about the flag anymore, it was about control. Mary left the office with more questions than answers, and a growing sense that this wasn't going to end quietly. Over the next week, the fines stacked up. $150 became $300, then $600, each letter colder than the last, each notice more aggressive. Neighbors started noticing at first. It was whispers. Did you hear about Mary? The HOA is going after her flag. Something about violations. But whispers don't stay whispers for long. One afternoon, a man named Tom, retired firefighter, lived 3 houses down, walked over to Mary's yard. He stood there, looking up at the flag. Then at her. This about the HOA? He asked. Mary nodded. Tom didn't say anything for a moment. Then he shook his head. That's not right. That simple sentence, that's where it started. Because Tom didn't just walk away. That evening, he posted about it in the neighborhood Facebook group. No drama. No exaggeration, just the facts. HOA is finding a widowed veteran over her flag. Within hours, the post exploded. Comments poured in. What? That's insane. They can't do that. Is this even legal? By morning, it wasn't just a neighborhood issue anymore. It was a community outrage. People started digging. Old documents surfaced, turns out. The HOA's new regulations were vague, poorly written, full of loopholes, and more importantly, there were exemptions, especially for American flags. Federal law even protected the right to display them. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. This wasn't just about Mary. This was about abuse of power, and people don't stay quiet when they smell injustice. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Thursday night. Usually, those meetings had maybe 6 attendees, mostly board members, and 1 or 2 residents complaining about parking that night. Standing room only, people lined the walls, filled the hallway. Some even stood outside. Mary didn't plan to speak. She didn't want attention, but attention had already found her. When her name came up on the agenda, the room shifted. Karen Holt started reading from a prepared statement. Resident Mary Toxin has been in violation of Section 8.3. She didn't get to finish. Are you serious right now? A voice from the crowd cut through the room. Then another. You're fining her for a flag. That's disgusting. Karen tried to maintain control. Please, one at a time, but it was too late. The room had turned. Tom stood up. That flag represents her husband, he said. A man who served this country. And you're telling us it violates aesthetics? Murmurs turned into agreement, then applause. Not polite applause. The kind that carries anger. Karen's composure cracked just slightly. We are simply enforcing community standards. No, someone shouted. You're overstepping. And just like that, the power dynamic shifted. For the first time, the HOA wasn't in control. The people were. Videos from that meeting hit social media that same night. Clips of residents standing up. Clips of Karen being challenged. Clips of Mary sitting quietly in the corner. Overwhelmed by mourning, it had gone beyond the neighborhood. Local news picked it up. Then, regional. Then, national headlines wrote themselves. Widowed veteran targeted by HOA. Community rallies against unfair fines. Public pressure built fast, faster than the HOA expected. Emails flooded their inbox. Calls came in nonstop. Even people outside the state started speaking up, and with every passing hour, the HOA's position became weaker. They tried to issue a statement. It backfired. They called it a misunderstanding. The internet called it something else. Cowardice. 3 days later, something happened that no one saw coming. Dozens of neighbors showed up in Mary's yard, each one carrying something. A flag. Small ones, large ones, mounted ones. They started placing them around her property, along the fence, near the porch, by the mailbox. Within an hour, her yard wasn't just a yard anymore. It was a statement, a quiet, powerful protest. If the HOA had a problem with one flag, now they had a problem with 50. Mary stood on her porch, watching it happen. Tears in her eyes. Not because of the flags, but because she realized something. She wasn't alone. And that changes everything. The HOA tried to respond. They sent out another notice, but this time, no one took it seriously. Because enforcement only works when people comply. And now, no one was willing to. The board scheduled an emergency meeting, closed door, no public access. That was their biggest mistake, because secrecy, in a moment like this, only fuels suspicion. Leaks started coming out. Board members arguing. Legal concerns being raised. Someone even mentioned potential lawsuits because here's the truth they didn't want to admit. They were on the wrong side of this, legally, morally, publicly, and they knew it. One by one, board members started backing off, distancing themselves, trying to protect their reputations. Karen Holt. She stayed silent until she couldn't. A week after the story broke, the HOA released a final statement. All fines against Mary Thompson were dropped. The flagpole was officially approved, and policy revisions would be made moving forward. It was worded carefully, but everyone understood what it meant. They lost. Not in a courtroom, not through some long legal battle, but in the court of public opinion. And that kind of loss, it hits harder, because it exposes something deeper. That power only works when people believe in it. The flag stayed up for weeks, not out of defiance anymore, but out of respect. Eventually, most neighbors took theirs down, but Mary kept hers. Same pole, same ritual, every morning coffee in hand, raising the flag, only now it felt different, stronger, because that flag didn't just represent her husband anymore. It represented a moment, a stand, a reminder that even the smallest act of resistance can spark something bigger, and that sometimes all it takes is one person being pushed too far for an entire town to see.